Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Bring it on, super starters. It's Tina Dietz here with another episode of the Start Something Show. Yeah. Happy to be bringing on today Lisa Marie Platske, who went from being a law enforcement officer with the FBI to being a very well-known leadership expert and is the CEO of Upside Thinking. Really fun conversation. And I was happy to dig in and see what she was bringing from her law enforcement experience and even what that experience was like for her, especially as a woman. And then how she leveraged that into becoming a very sought-after leadership expert in the world of coaching, training, and doing some pretty amazing events out on the West Coast. Before we get to that, it is time to celebrate a super starter who is killing it. I love to highlight folks who are really just getting going in their business. And I want to give a shout out to because they're doing amazing things. They're taking the time. They're taking the energy. They've built this momentum snowball. And now they're out there with a purpose and a passion that is admirable. Now, I met this couple back when I was living in Buffalo, New York. Our kids were on, our sons were on the same Cub Scout. I almost said the same Cub Scout team. Yeah, I'm good like that. The same Cub Scout troop. And just a wonderful couple. And they ended up taking the leap to start a part-time business for themselves so that they could create a better life, not only for themselves, but to fulfill some pretty significant dreams to have, to build an animal sanctuary and also to make a difference in the world of international adoption. They had tried to adopt for many years and were always kind of thwarted by the fact that it costs so many thousands of dollars to adopt a child. And I know that blows my mind, and it blows a lot of other people's minds too, that you basically have to purchase a baby as a premium product. And when there's a lot of people who would love to bring a child into their homes, but don't necessarily have $30,000 up front to pay for an adoption. So this couple, who are named Kate and Tony Notaro, are my super starters of the month for their work in kicking butt and taking names. They are working with essential oils to educate people. Kate is a nurse by trade, and she is using her medical knowledge to help people find some comfort, some healing, some peace, community by using these essential oils. So you can check out their business at yldist.com/franklyessential. Yeah, it's a slightly odd website because they're just getting going in their business. They've got a great team that they're building. They're really killing it. But we don't have all pretty URLs when we're starting out our business. It's okay. I'm still going to give them the Start Something bump up. So check it out at yldist.com/franklyessential. Kate and Tony Notaro, you keep doing what you're doing. You are our super starters of the month. If you'd like to nominate a super starter of the month, head on over to thestartsomethingshow.com and go to the Contact Us page. Nominate someone who's doing something great in the world, even if they're just getting started. And we'd love to feature folks on the show who are making the world a better place, as well as creating a better life for themselves and their families, because that's what it's all about here. We're helping people create their business and life oasis, that place in the world where you know that you're always going to be nourished and refreshed. All right, let's get on with the show. So check it out, super starters. Today on the show, we have the CEO of Upside Thinking, Inc., Lisa Marie Platske. Lisa Marie creates high-performing leaders, coaching women in business from around the globe. She's an award-winning leadership expert and a #1 best-selling author, and she uses her law enforcement journey to share what exceptional leaders do differently to seize untapped opportunities. We all know the connection, we cannot do without it. It is the new currency, and we have to position ourselves as standout experts. This is what Lisa Marie is so brilliant at. She's the founder of Design Your Destiny Live, and she lives in Virginia with her husband, Jim, and their 2 pet foxes, which makes her a foxy lady. So, Lisa Marie, thank you for starting something with me today.
Thank you so much, Tina. And I like being a foxy lady. That's fantastic.
I think that's a high compliment as far as I'm concerned.
Sure is. It sure is. And you know what? And that's actually something that my husband would say. So how about that?
Well, there you go. I don't know if you've ever been introduced that way before. You may never be introduced that way again, but hey, there it is.
I have not. And so, once again, creating these core memories is a good thing.
Well, I'm glad you have a positive spin on it because, it's got to take risks. So,
no,
all right. So I had been reading into your background and delving in, and I kind of wanted like a bowl of popcorn to learn about your journey and your story because it's really kind of popcorn worthy. It's really cool. Now, tell me some more about, a little bit about your background and that moment that you decided to change your life and start something.
Ooh. Well, you know what? I always tell people that I'm the accidental entrepreneur. So unlike yourself, who's, out there and, multiple startups and, this was not something that I was like, ooh, I'm going to start my own business. That was never in my mind. Nobody in my family ever had a business. I never ever met anybody who owned a business. I mean, literally, there was just no, that was not a seed that was in my mind. But my husband and I, we dated when I was in law enforcement and I was working in the New York area. And he had been working in the DC area and we both agreed that we weren't looking for anything serious. And so long distance would work. Those great theories when you start a relationship and say, I'm not interested in something serious. And the other person says, I'm not interested in something serious. And then you get married, So that's how that
accidental
works.
marriage and accidental entrepreneur. That's great.
So, but it's true, really, it's kind of funny that's exactly how it played out. And so we were living in different places and would see each other every couple of weeks. And then I took this transfer to teach at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and he took one to run the Air and Marine Operations Center in California, and then I took one to work at the Leadership Development Center in Dallas, Texas. And so it's not like, if you know your U.S. geography, you know that we're not getting closer, okay?
No, my mind is kind of spinning a little bit on that one. Although I have to say, having been married for closer to 20 years than not, that this whole idea of only seeing each other every couple of weeks has some appeal on occasion.
It does. So, it does. It does. And still
sometimes.
To this day, we travel. And so while he's incredibly loving and supportive and it's a great marriage, their space has its privileges. So, when my husband proposed and, we were going to be, I just thought I would keep my job in Texas and life would just keep going on the way it was. And it was friends who said, hey, you know what? Like most, couples who get married, they live together. So, my husband and I were like, yeah, that's probably true. And so we had a conversation and the conversation was, what would it look like if I walked away from this really very, passionate career that I had in law enforcement and also, a lot of accolades and, moving up the career ladder very quickly. And that's, a lot of times career and business is our identity. This is the who we are. And so stepping away from something that you're successful in is, it can sometimes be challenging and bring up triggers. And this certainly did for me. But I made the decision that, if I look at my values and the relationship is important and you're going to get married, you want the marriage to succeed. And so I left, but that put me in this unique position in life where I was getting a regular paycheck. I did something I loved. And now I had no clue in the world what I was going to do. And so, because I had taught leadership in the government and I had mentored supervisors, new supervisors and mid-level managers. And because I taught and created curriculum first with outside consultants and then, internally at the Leadership Development Center, leadership is something that had been part of my life for many years. My graduate degree, I did a thesis on formal and informal mentoring. And it really was something that I believed leadership was a key to unlocking how it is that you're able to make the biggest difference in the world. And that's really how I saw it. And so some people, are leaders in the job that they do. And some people, are in the exact same job for 30 years and never lead anything. And the same thing in business, in business. Some people, they go nowhere, and some people turn out to be standout leaders in what they do. And so I had this conversation with my husband, and I said, what would you think if I, started up a leadership training company? And it sounds great in theory. I mean, Tina, you know everything about starting something, and it's like, oh, you're sure. You would just print a business card and here we go, right?
Right. I mean, because it's all inside of you. You can teach it. You've got all these chops, and you've paid all these dues, and you've done all this stuff, and you've worked with all these government officials and all this stuff. And then you kind of step on and go, here I am. And it's crickets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's one of the things, really about positioning that I've gotten into is that, you can have the greatest product or service, but that doesn't mean that people will consume it, if you're not positioned well. And so I really had to go take a step back and look at what is it, for me that I can do. And I looked at how my grandfather influenced so many people and in such a short period of time, because I was 3,000 miles from my closest friend or connection. I knew nobody in business. And, my first contract was a $50,000 gig. And that was within less than 6 months. And so it was a wonderful beginning to what has been a very successful 10 years in business. And
okay. So I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
Because I know a bunch of people who are listening to this just went, what? So about that $50,000 contract in under 6 months, what do you attribute that to? How did you get from here, from where you were just starting out to that contract in a nutshell? I mean, I know there's always in depth to it, but, what was kind of the standout strengths or, that you found that really worked for you in that situation?
I believe that there were two pieces to it. And one, as I speak about all the time, connection. Connection is a form of currency. And that's what I meant about my grandfather. My grandfather was someone who was a bartender, and he just, he was someone who connected with people and, just really loved on people. And so I understood what it took. There's certain keys to being able to connect with others. And that second element of that ties into the connection is really seeking to serve first. And so if you can imagine this sort of bank account that you have of connection, you can't go into connections with the expectation of receiving no differently than you can go into a bank and take out something unless you've put money in, right? They call that a loan. It's not, you don't just get to say, well, you know what, I'm really worth it. And so someday there'll be money here. It doesn't work that way, right? You have to sign papers and you take out a loan. And so you can only be on borrowed money or borrowed, time, connection, energy for so long. And so I really, was somebody who was out there, and I would go to far more presentations and events on leadership than on anything else. Because I believe that you should do what you do best and network the rest. So I don't need to know everything about social media or everything about, any other thing in business. What I needed to be better at and hone in and be masterful at was leadership. And what opened the door, particularly for that contract, is that I actually showed up at an event where a speaker didn't do so well. And I was trying to help her out because it was, you want a speaker to succeed. And so I was trying to help her out, and somebody in the audience came up to me and said, you really know what you're talking about, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. And that's what opened the door for the contract. And so, my first goal was to really show up to be of service and to connect. And I think that always allows you to be able to make a difference. Now, of course, there's other elements to that. Like you said, the story can be much longer and we can go much deeper in it. But I would say that those are the more foundational pieces.
Oh, wow. That's a cool transition. That's a cool story about, you really stepped out. You've shown your light on somebody in terms of being of service. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are a little nervous to do that when they're first kind of stepping out, and that kind of confidence. Now, would you say that, now, again, kind of going back to some of your background, you worked in federal law enforcement. You were not necessarily behind a desk, for a lot of your career. No, this is no joke. This is, and so, you went through a lot in terms of not only the type of work you were doing in federal law enforcement, but also having to deal with crap from coworkers and things like that. So did you find that dealing with those situations and earning the respect from some really tough dudes, what did that provide you? How the hell did you deal with that with those guys on the job? I know that's like 3 questions in one, but I'm just kind of like, what? Yeah.
Well, you know what, Tina, it's so true, that I did go through all that. And I will tell you that I was, this naive, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. I mean, not super tiny, but, not, metropolitan area, and, sheltered for a good portion of my life, where I just didn't have a clue of what it is I was walking into. Like, I really didn't. I mean, in theory and, growing up watching like Charlie's Angels and Murder, She Wrote, I thought that I had an idea of what it was like, but actually walking onto the piers in New York and like being issued a gun is almost surreal. And, I just, I didn't have any idea, what positioning was, or what, perception was, or how to actually stand out or be a leader, or, I just was so green that I can't, that I'm lucky to be alive. Let me just put it to you that way. I mean, that's really the truth. And so, it's sort of like, I don't know about, maybe, you were much, I'm sure you were much more confident and sure of yourself. But, in my 20s, I just really had no
Sorry,
clue.
that's funny.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really just was absolutely just didn't have a clue. And so I feel that, one of the things in life is that, you get experiences, and not so good experiences, that hopefully give you, keys to open doors to make things better for you, right? If it, once you're hit in the head so many times, it's like, aha, so
we hope so. Yes.
That's how I really, really felt, is that I just, there were so many things that I didn't know. And the worst part about it was I didn't know that I didn't know, so, there'd be these experiences where I would, one of my first assignments, go to something simple, you have to go to the bathroom, and you're on the pier. So there's no women's bathroom. Oh, okay. Well, this is like 1994. Okay. This isn't like, 1974. Okay. And what do you do with that? Or you're out on an assignment and and the NYPD officer says, and you're on the boat and you're in the middle of the, on this presidential detail, and you're the senior officer, you're the person in charge because you're the federal person. And the NYPD officer says, tough crap, Well, he said something different than that.
Yeah, of course.
We're not taking you in. Like, use the bucket downstairs and like suck it up. You have a couple choices, right? You can cry. You would not so effective. You can yell, also not so effective. And so once again, putting on that leadership hat, what's the thing that's going to allow you to have the greatest degree of influence so that you ultimately can get what you want in the end? And I think that's what law enforcement taught me. But I can't say that in entering my business that it really was the confidence piece at all, because I don't think I was I was confident in the sense that I knew my worth and my value to be able to ask for that money. And when they asked me for less, I said no. I told them that I'd be happy to give them a payment plan, but I told them,
oh, that's good.
No, it wasn't. No, it wouldn't be less. So I knew the value of what it is that I would offer. Was there a part of me that was like, like shaking, like, oh my gosh, sure, absolutely. Because I had never sold anything in my life. I didn't know anything about business. I had never taken a business class in college. And so I think that the biggest thing really is that if you can look at every experience as what's the lesson, they're like stepping stones that ends up taking you someplace. And there's even things in that deal that I would have done differently, looking back, hindsight being 2020. So, I'm hoping that answers all 3 questions.
I definitely think you did. I definitely think you did. When you left your career in law enforcement, I hear a rumor that you had a nickname. Was your nickname really Mary Effin' Sunshine?
It really was Mary Effin' Sunshine.
That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I love it.
Yes, it is, because I was very negative in the beginning. And part of that is, like I said, I was green and I just didn't know enough about life. And I think that because I had a rougher childhood that wasn't a privileged childhood, there were things in life that I looked at that I was angry about, more of the victim, like, how come it didn't work out for me where I didn't get, the car or the two parents, or how come I didn't get the package deal that came, all the good things in life, so to speak. And once again, just like what I said, is I got different lessons and gifts from being raised by a single mom. I got different lessons and gifts by being able to stand up for my value and worth, by watching her have to fight to do that. And so, at some point there was a switch for me that allowed me to not just be looking at, gosh, all the things you don't have, but to really embrace and say, okay, so maybe you don't have that pedigreed life, but you have this, and it's taught you this, and that's the reason why a lot of the other women struggle with getting along with the guys, and you can do it because you spent so much time with your grandfather. And so maybe if you would have had a different life, you wouldn't have had that. And so you're able to get along with them. And so when I did that switch, I really became a happier person. And so instead of being the person in the room that people wanted to run away from, I became the person that they wanted to run towards. And so therefore, obviously in jest, one of the women was like, well, isn't she just Mary effing Sunshine? And so it's
and that's great because, what I love is that you didn't suppress your femininity. You didn't suppress your leadership. You didn't suppress your voice, even through all of this. And to maintain that positivity is pretty spectacular. And I'm excited that that's, now what you focus on and you bring into your work and help other people to develop. You've mentioned positioning several times, and I love this particular topic because it's something that kind of gets glossed over when we talk about business, because we all have this massive case of happy puppy syndrome where we're like, yay, let's go, business, yay. And then pieces get missed out on. So, for our super starters out there who might not be familiar with positioning as a concept, would you break it down a little bit for them?
Sure, absolutely. So positioning sometimes gets confused with visibility, and they're not the same. They're not the same at all. And positioning trumps visibility. So you can be incredibly visible, meaning you can be in the room, people can see you. But envision it this way: if you're facing if you have your back facing the person and you're talking to them, you're not positioned correctly. So think of it that way. And so Al Ries and Jack Trout wrote a book in 1969, and it actually was when it first was coined. And what they defined positioning as is an organized system that opens a window to the mind. An organized system that opens a window to the mind. And so, what positioning does, it allows people to hear you. And if we receive, if Nobel Prize winning scientist, Daniel Kahneman says that we have, at least 20,000 individual moments a day, the brain can't handle all of that. And so even as we're chatting here and Tina and I are having a good time, and we're hoping you're having a good time with us, listening in, the truth is the brain is, it's phasing out what it's hearing because it can't handle all of that. It would go on overload. And so sometimes when people speak about their businesses, they think, gosh, I'm saying all these brilliant things, and why isn't anybody responding? And it's because you're not speaking to the person's listening or to their brain. And brain science means that, there's a way that there's certain words, there's language, there's certain phrases that can be heard and certain ones that can't be heard. The brain falls asleep. It's to conserve energy. And so positioning is oftentimes confused with other things, branding, visibility, but positioning is really about opening the mind and creating that organized system so that people can hear you and ultimately want to buy what it is that you have to offer.
And we're going to be digging into positioning, along with also talking about connection and more leadership on the Backstage Pass with Lisa Marie. So you're not going to want to miss that, folks. So make sure that if you're not a member of the Start Something Show, that you head over to the startsomethingshow.com and fix that small issue so that you can be part of that conversation and the conversations with all of our in-depth experts that we have for you. So, Lisa Marie, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
That is cool stuff. It's very cool stuff. And of course, we also want everyone, you're going to go back and check out the show notes for this episode as well, because we have links to all of Lisa Marie's stuff for you, because she's written fabulous books. We have links to those. We got links to her website, Upside Thinking. Go to Upside Thinking. Come on. Go to who doesn't want more Upside Thinking? All right.
Holy
I know
shmoly.
Good Lord.
You're awesome. Holy schmoly.
Besides, you know what? Like I said, that was where I dug into more of your backstory, and I wanted the popcorn. So your whole website to me is just like, let's read more story. This is great, you know? And that's the sign of a really good website there, when you want to sit there and delve into it, and your kids walk into the room and you're like, shh, I'm reading. So.
Well, and you know what? That's one of the things that I love that you have, which is like more about me, like my personal story, and then more about my professional development. So you like even break it down to people to be able to say, hey, you know, you can, find more about, the credential side.
Yeah.
And, that's fantastic, because people do want story, and, giving them that option.
We need to hear that. Yeah. We need to hear that for our business, and we need to hear that because, we are human beings who happen to be doing business. And that's really the big thing. So, Lisa Marie, it has been phenomenal. I can't wait to dive into more with you in the backstage pass. But before we do that, and we let our superstarters go, if you were to kind of have it all go away tomorrow, this whole new business that you've built and everything, and you didn't have the resources that you've built, but you had all your knowledge, you had all your skills, what would be some of the first things you would do to start over and start something fresh?
Wow, that is really a heavy question, because I almost had that exact thing happen.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a very dark place, with regards to something that had happened in my business. And, it's really interesting because I remember, just the stress of what was going on. And it was actually the week before Thanksgiving. And I got down on my hands and knees and I said, you know what? I'm like, God, this is all yours. And so take it. If you want this and the house and everything, you can have it. And just tell me what it is I'm supposed to do next. And what was interesting is the next day, the situation, resolved itself. And I'm legally bound not to go into the details. And so that's the reason why I'm being slightly vague, but it was a very, just an incredible time to let me know I really am on the right path. And so this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And one of the things for me that I really had to ask myself in that moment is, would I be okay? Would I be okay if everything went away? And the answer that I got resounding was yes. That I will, that there are so many ways to make a difference in the world. And so if it doesn't look like this, it would just look like something else. But your question was about what would I do? And I think one of the things that I would first do would be to give myself space, and the other thing that I would do is I believe very much in, as I mentioned, connection, is I would reach out to the strong advisors and friends that I've built and, ask them about, what it is that they really see as potentially next for me on my journey, so that I would get some input. I know that in my quiet time, I would do some journaling, and I have an interesting journal practice, where I'll write my name and then, or me. Actually, I don't write my name. I usually write me, and then I will write, and then I write God, and then, and stuff comes out of me that I have no idea where the heck it came from. And I go, really? No, I don't want to do that. No, but I know that it's part of my, whatever it is that I'm supposed to do. And I think that, I would look for what's the next big problem it is that I feel needs to be looked at or examined in the world. And so, I continue to do that and do that as serving on boards and organizations. And so I think that would be my sort of 3 next steps, if you will.
Gorgeous. Lisa Marie, you are not only a foxy lady and Mary effin' Sunshine, you are a powerhouse.
Thank you, Tina.
It's really been absolutely delightful to have you on this show today. And we'll We're going to dig into that backstage pass and talk about positioning and leadership and connection and make it happen for people. So I'll see you over there, okay?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with you.
My absolute pleasure. And Superstarters, make sure you go back to thestartsomethingshow.com, grab the show notes, grab the links to Lisa Marie, and of course, join us on the Backstage Pass. We will see you next week on the Start Something Show.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.